Hello everyone, today we are going to read about the mechanism of respiration in humans. When we talk about mechanism of respiration or the physiology of respiration, it is completed in four complex and continuous steps, that is breathing, external respiration, tissue respiration and cellular respiration. So first of all we will read about breathing. In breathing, we will know what is inhalation and what is exhalation. So, when we talk about breathing, the movement of fresh air from outside into the lungs to the respiratory tract and the foul air in opposite direction is called breathing. It occurs by changing the volume in the thoracic cavity, and it can be studied into two steps. One is inhalation and the second one is exhalation. So first of all, we will read about inhalation. When we talk about inhalation, it is the movement of fresh air into the lungs. So where does this fresh air comes from? It comes from the environment outside the body. Now during this, the volume of thoracic cavity is increased by the combined movement of ribs and diaphragm. As these move upwards, they also move forward and they also move outwards, which results in expansion of lungs, or the cavity of lungs increases. Due to this increase in volume of lungs, pressure of air inside the lungs decrease when we compare to the atmospheric pressure which is outside. This results in movement of air having higher pressure from outside to inside the lungs to equalize the pressure. Now when the fresh air rushes inside, then what happens? Exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide, it takes place between the alveoli and the blood. And now what happens? The lungs are full with the foul air, which is carbon dioxide. Now the next step, that is exhalation. The movement of foul air from the lungs outside the body, it could be said exhalation. Now what happens during this? During this, volume of thoracic cavity is decreased by the inward and the downward movement of ribs, just opposite to the inhalation, and upward bulging of the diaphragm. Now what happens there? The thoracic cavity, it decreases, and due to that the foul air, it rushes outside the body in the form of exhalation. Here in this slide you can see the diagram of alveoli. When we talk about alveoli, they look like bunch of grapes. The alveoli have a very thin wall composed of simple moist non-ciliated squamous epithelium. It is closely surrounded by a network of blood capillaries. These alveoli, they increase the surface area of the absorption in the lungs. Now we will read about steps of respiration. So I have already told you that there are 4 steps of respiration. They are very complex and continuously they take one by one. The first one is breathing, second one is the external respiration, third one is tissue respiration, and the fourth and final one is the cellular respiration. So first of all, breathing. I have already told you about breathing, and then I told you about the structure of alveoli, so that you may know that how the absorption of oxygen takes place in the lungs. Now the second one is the external respiration. Now we will read about external respiration. Now exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between the inhaled air of blood through the surface of respiratory organ is known as external respiration. This external respiration takes place because of higher pressure of oxygen in the inhaled air as compared to carbon dioxide. As a result, oxygen diffuses into the blood from the alveoli of lungs and carbon dioxide in the opposite direction. As exchange of gases always takes place in solution form, therefore the surface of respiratory organ is always kept moist, so that the exchange of gases takes place continuously in the external respiration. Now in this part we will read about transpiration of oxygen first of all. The oxygen that diffuses into blood from the lungs is transported to various body tissues in the following form. About 97% of oxygen combines with hemoglobin of RBC. You already know that the red blood cells, they are made up of hemoglobin, forming unstable compound oxyhemoglobin. Now what is this oxyhemoglobin? It is the combination of oxygen and hemoglobin. The remaining 3% dissolves into the plasma. Now about internal or tissue respiration. This is the third step of physiology of respiration. Now exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between the blood and body tissue is called internal respiration, or it can also be said tissue respiration. The oxygen from the blood moves into the body tissue, whereas carbon dioxide from the tissue, it moves to the blood. Because of higher concentration of carbon dioxide into the body tissue produced due to the cellular respiration. Now the fourth and the last part, that is cellular respiration. The biological oxidation of glucose in the cell is called cellular respiration. Here the oxidation of food takes place. The energy which is released during cellular respiration is immediately used to synthesize ATP. ATP is broken down, giving rise to fixed amount of energy. This energy can derive the endothermic reaction taking place in the cell. Now we will read about respiration in plants. Plants also breathe. They do require oxygen for respiration, which in return gives out carbon dioxide. Unlike animals and humans, plants do not have any specialized structure for gaseous exchange, but they have stomata and lenticels, which are involved in the exchange of gases. Compared to animals and humans, plant roots, stems and leaves respire at a very low rate. First of all, we will read about respiration in roots. Roots are the underground part of the plant. They absorb air from the air spaces which are present between the soil particles. Thus, the oxygen absorbed through roots are used to release energy, which is later utilized for the transportation of minerals and salts from the soil. Now, respiration in stems. In the case of stem, the air gets diffused in the stomata and passes through various parts of the cells for respiration. The carbon dioxide produced during this stage also diffuses through the stomata. In higher plants or woody plants, the gaseous exchange is carried out by lenticels. Now, respiration in leaves. We have already read in the previous chapter that leaves contain tiny pores referred as stomata. The exchange of gases takes place via stomata through the process of diffusion. Each stoma is controlled by guard cells. The opening and closing of the stoma helps in the exchange of gases between the atmosphere and the interior of the leaves.